However you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls, to Paranormal Now. I'm Alan B. Smith. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portholes and tantalizing turnoffs. And tonight we're going to take this is going to be a journey of the cosmos and of our own inner space. And yeah, definitely there's going to be some self-reflection regarding the state of humanity and our relationship with what seems to be an ET presence that has imbued itself and has interrupted the lives of many individuals, including our guest tonight, Dolly Safran. And joining us is Preston Dennett to help us sort of shepherd through this very complex story and experience, lifelong experience since she was 14 years old, Dolly, because it's about learning about our future, where we're going as humanity, what we're doing wrong, which I think many of us already have a pretty good idea of what we're doing wrong. But how do we self-correct? How do we course correct? And that's going to be a big question tonight. In just a little bit, those two will join me. As a friendly reminder, the Half-Light documentary, which touches on the experiencer and contactee subject, is available on this channel now. So if you want to check it out later, just check out the video section under the channel and hit play. It's a encompassing film that deals with all aspects of the paranormal, including shadow figures, ghosts, life after death, and alien abductions. And what I think is most important about the film is the representation of the people in the community, the people that I've gotten to know, the people that I've come to care about, and stories that are not just supernaturally compelling, but very compelling in a human way as well. So I hope you'll go check that out. And if you are a fan of coffee like myself, please go to aliencoffeebean.com where you can get their delicious coffee. If you are in the US, for a 20% discount, enter on their website the discount code mystery, all caps, to 20, and you can become as caffeinated as I am every day. All right, so we'll get to our guest again in just a moment. As a friendly reminder, we will be watching the chat, so if you have questions tonight, please share. And I promise you, I will ask Preston his take on the congressional hearing on the UAP phenomenon, because I have to tell you, I think the very fact that it seemed mundane is actually a positive. We'll find out what these two think in just a moment. And now we bring on Dolly and Preston. Welcome, both of you, to Paranormal Now.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Alan.
We have quite the journey to go on tonight. That is for sure. You two have shared about this story before, but unlike some stories, this is a long one, and I don't think you could ever get bored talking about this experience that Dolly has had, and it's really fantastic. So, to start, Preston, can you tell us a little bit about how you were introduced to Dolly and how you built a relationship together?
Yeah, well, I've been in this field for 35 years, a long time. Came in as a skeptic. Found out my family, friends, and coworkers were having encounters. Really knocked me for a loop, and became very serious about finding out what's going on. And I've talked to a lot of people who are having encounters. And along comes 2016, 6 years ago. And I'm contacted by this lady named Dolly, who's very shy at first about talking to me. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I've talked to other people. You can trust me. If you don't want me to use your name, I won't. And she opened up bit by bit. And I got more and more of her story. And I was amazed, shocked, and delighted, really, to see that her story was probably more extensive than anyone else I've ever talked to or even read about. And it took a while to get a lot of the information out of her because she'd spent pretty much her whole life keeping this secret.
Yeah.
But how it actually happened is really interesting, because Dolly had decided to go public with her story at some point.
And that led to the book SYMMETRY, A True UFO Adventure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she was looking for someone who could help her, tell her story. And she had actually talked to her ET contacts about this. And they said,
Mm-hmm.
are you sure you want to go public? Do you realize this is a big step? And she said, yes, I want to go public. So she decides to go public and looking for a UFO researcher, and couldn't find one she really liked.
Mm-hmm.
She was amazed to see how much disinformation there was out there, and
Sure.
researchers who were pushing their own agenda and the fear-based thinking and this sort of thing. And she told the ETs about this. She's like, I'm having a hard time. And they said, well, tell you what, we want you to contact this guy. His name is Preston, last name Dennett, and actually spelled my name out and said, here, he's the guy we want you to check out. We think he might be a good fit for you.
So you're the chosen one, Preston.
The Greys know about me.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, it's not the only time that's happened. It's happened at least 3 times now. And I have other indications that they do know about me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was referred to by the Greys. So
that's quite the reference.
that is awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
You should put that on your CV, right? Wow.
Yeah.
So Dolly, tell us a little bit about you and who are you as a person before we get into your contactee experience. Tell us a little bit about you. What are things that you enjoy, and how do you live day to day?
Well, I was born. I was in Georgia, and when I was really, really small, we went to Miami, and we stayed in Miami until I was about 4 or 5, and then we lived in Wisconsin for about a year or so on a
Mm-hmm.
dairy farm, and then came back to Florida and moved around a couple of times, and then ended up in the Everglades. Um, I'm just a rootin' tootin' shooting kind of girl. Learned how to hunt, learned how to do all kinds of things. I can ride a horse pretty good, and I'm kind of I'm just a normal person. I live every day just like everybody else. I'm a
Yeah.
swimmer. I like medicine. I became a nurse. I've always been interested in animals as well.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a teenager in high school, I became a student park ranger in the Everglades, and I rescued animals all the time, took care of them. Uh, Over the years, I eventually started working in my cousin's zoo, and this is one of the zoo's baby mamas, and there were 3 of us, and uh, just worked at taking care of everybody and everything all my whole life. I mean, I've just sort of been in service to everything and everyone in some form or capacity my entire life. So.
Yeah. So in a sense, you're kind of in a cosmic service right now.
Yeah, I'm also a very big conservationist, ecology, that sort of thing. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things I entertained wanting to do when I was younger was be a marine biologist. I had a whole wide thing, I was in ecology in high school and conservation and stuff like that. I mean, it's just, given the fact how I've lived, I couldn't help myself. That's just who I am.
And these encounters began when you were 14 years old, correct?
No, I was actually 10 months old first encounter.
Oh, okay.
I was in my crib in Miami. We lived on Biscayne Boulevard in a big apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
And we were right across the street from the ocean, as a matter of fact, from the bay. And
Okay.
I was supposed to be napping, and I had those. You remember those old metal levelers? I was looking at them, and what do you think at 10 months old, right? And I saw this light shine through them, and it was very bright midday, and I was like, "Woo, look at that," And
Yeah.
then next thing you know, I levitated up in my crib, and by the time I got to the rail, it scared me, and I flipped over. I was trying to go back down, and that's my memory ends there. I've had off and on encounters my whole life. I
Mm-hmm.
just can't connect them all, By the time I was 14, I was kind of desperate to prove either I'm nuts or I was gonna prove that something was really happening to me. And my opportunity came one night in January 1973. And I took astronomy lessons also, and was out in the backyard with my telescope doing my homework. 1 o'clock in the morning, my dad's like, go to bed. It's a school night, go to bed. Okay. So I went in, put my scope away, and got jammies on, and I sit on my bed. It's right next to my window. And I just put my elbows up on the ledge and look out the window. And lo and behold, I saw 400 lights in the sky. Not 400, I'm exaggerating that. 100 lights about in the sky. And I'm like, there's not stars. What the heck, And they started moving, and they started pairing off. And they went east, west, north, and south. And I was like, oh my God, this is my opportunity. Brace yourself, And I started watching them coming down. And 2 pairs broke off from the group. One came down over our area and went to Dadeland Mall on Kendall Road in Kendall. And the other 2 came down over our property. One went west, way west of us, and the other one came down over our house in the back. I watched all the trees in the backyard start whipping around. There's no wind that night, nothing. It was a calm night, and no clouds, nothing. And I was like, whoa, look at this thing, and I started memorizing it. Okay. When you think you're nuts, it's important to be able to have full recall of stuff. And so that's what I did. I was going for it. And as I was working my way up the craft, looking at it, I saw 2 ports. And in those ports were these 2 little beings, and they're staring at me. I mean, dead at me. And I was like, that unnerved me. Okay. And I thought, no, we're not doing this now. Okay. And I turned, and I was going to dive under my bed, and my whole room exploded in blue white light. And I black out, and I wake up 3 hours later on the floor. I'm not in my own jammies anymore. They're inside out. And I'm pissed because it happened to me again, And then it dawned on me, oh my God, these are not my jammies. Okay. So I'm starting to think this really happened. And I'm determined now. I'm determined something's happening. Okay. I hear my mom in the kitchen, and I had to get ready for school. I went to the bath, got clothes on for school, went in the kitchen. She's like, make coffee. So I made coffee. Paul Harvey's on the radio. And I'm like, Mom, did you guys see anything last night? Did you hear anything? Did you see any lights? She goes, what are you talking about? And this is a very, very tough subject in our house, UFOs. And she whirled on me. She went, no talk. I'm like, okay. Talking about coffee. I got my very first cup of coffee that day. I'll never forget it. I know when I started drinking coffee. Yep. Sat at the table, dejected, upset. I'm just like, how do I talk to her? Because my mother never let me talk about it. Okay. The radio's still on, and then all of a sudden the news came on, and the announcer, first thing out of his mouth, 2 Dadeland police officers witnessed a UFO come out of the sky, described the whole thing, and it buzzed one of them twice. And I become hysterical this one. I'm excited. Oh my God, I am not crazy. I got confirmation, and I was losing my, what? And my mom says, out of the kitchen. No. And I was like, I never went against her, so I left the kitchen. And as I came out the door, my dad was walking in, and he just said, calm down, go meditate, just calm down, we'll talk later. And I'm like, okay. The only private room in our house is the bathroom, so I went in there and shut the door, locked it, turned the light out, and I just sat on the floor thinking, how am I going to do this? How do I figure out what the heck just happened to me? And it hit me. Replay it, go through it step by step in your mind, recall it, best you can. So I started replaying the incident, and I kept telling myself, you're going to remember, you'll see this, open your eyes, you can see it. And when we got to the bright light, I saw a ribbon come down, and I freaked. I had to stop for a second because I didn't remember that right away. And I went back to it, and I saw 2 beings come down, the 2 little gray guys, AIs. And one of them walked up to me. I was frozen. I couldn't move. I literally could not move my body. I was aware, but I couldn't move. And he took me by the hand, and he put one arm around my waist. And when he did that, he started walking toward the ribbon, and I followed him. When he got to the ribbon, he grabbed it, and literally we became weightless at that point. We changed somehow, and we went up this ribbon. It was kind of weird because in my first experience going through something interdimensionally, went through the roof, went through the tree, went up to the craft, the door was open. It's like a side door. Okay. It sort of leans in like this, up the slope, and it opened up, and he pushed me through it, and I landed on my keister, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what's, and then I realized somebody's sitting down next to me, and I look up, and it's a woman, and my brain exploded at that point because I absolutely knew who she was. I remembered her. I was starting to just go through a whole lot. It's like everything just went in my mind, and I realized who she was to me. I knew when I met her, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Hi, Mama." And I'm trying to assimilate all this experience all at once. And then I threw up. I threw up bad. They
I
cleaned
think
me
that's
up.
understandable.
It helped me clean up. They decontaminated me. They gave me like a little smock to wear. And they
Mm-hmm.
brought me back in there. And I'm sitting there, and they're just allowed. I was shaking by then. It's weird to have your life it's like somebody just turned a light on, and it wasn't all at one time, but it was every time I thought about one thing, something else popped into my head. And then I hear this voice, and it's telling me, "Hey, I'm glad you remember. You remember me. Who am I?" And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, I know who this is." And I freaked out even more. And he said, "It's Talata." And then I realized who Talata was. Talata is a fifth dimensional disembodied entity who indwells the craft. He runs the craft. He becomes the craft. That's how their technology works. And I was like, oh my God. They let me have two AI Grace who took me through the craft again. I needed to familiarize myself. They realized I was being flooded by memories, and they wanted me to attach to them. So I did a tour of the craft. And then when they brought me back, he said, "We're going for a ride," which I knew what that meant. We were going to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
They put me in the pilot's seat. He said, "You're flying." And I know how this craft flies. And I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to do that? Because it's psychically guided. Okay. And he says, "We've got a control for you. It knows what you're doing, and it'll report to me what you're doing, and we'll be synced that way." And I'm like, okay. And we went to
You were
Saturn.
okay with? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Dolly. You were okay with that?
Yep. Are you kidding? If somebody said, wait a minute, if somebody said to you, "We're going for a ride in a big craft," and you remembered being there before, yeah, you'd say yes. Oh my God. I was a little bit of I'm not afraid of anything actually. Okay. And I was like, "Oh yeah, let's go." He gave me a tutorial, what I was going to be doing. And we went to Saturn. I got to see the rings, the moons. Um, he refreshed my memory on why this planet does what it does, and it's actually one of the moons of Saturn has an orbit around the planet that's backwards. It goes counterclockwise, not clockwise.
Mm-hmm.
Goes clockwise, not counterclockwise. Anyway, it's a very cool place. He reoriented me to everything, and what was spectacular to me is that our vision is not that good. Okay, we even with our equipment to see things, you don't truly see the full spectrum of colors there are and stuff like that. I mean, it's phantasmagorical, and when you're actually there, you see it in person, and that was flooring me. And he said, "We're not done," and we went back out away from the planet, and we started heading out. And he said, "We're going to the moon."
Yeah.
The moon is very personal to me. I love the moon. I've studied the moon most of the time that I've been in astronomy classes. It means a lot to me. My father worked for NASA, and it's a big deal, And he did I can only call it, it's a spirograph turn around the moon. We went in that sort of a orbit around it, keep going and changing. And I got to see both sides of the moon. I got to see different topographies and stuff that was there. I saw the LEM sitting there. We went to a place and we self-landed, and they had a long talk with me. And that's when I woke up. That's my whole experience of waking up. I have been conscious ever since. I've never had, a huge amount of time missing. I've had a couple of procedures done to me that I do have a small amount of, like, maybe an hour or something. And it was because I would have fought them for that particular procedure was to help me. And, you were going to have surgery. So that's the only missing time I've got at all. So I'm totally conscious of everything.
And so that procedure was that. What did it feel like? What was that like for you?
Um, just before my 19th birthday, I used to work as a security guard for Wells Fargo, and I had an IBM building that I was in Atlanta, and it had 14 floors and a roof. And when you're a security guard, you carry a disc clock with you, and it has a key on every floor that you turn it in the clock to show that you made that round and you were in that spot. And you go out on the roof as well, because there's a spot out there. It's to protect the roof. And I went on my round. I have a partner at that time, and so it was my turn. We took turns. And when I came back, I was going into the elevator doors, and that's the last thing I remember. I remember standing outside the elevator doors after it was all over with, an hour later, and thinking, I was like, and my partner found me. I was supposed to be already back to her station, and she's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I'm like, "I'm in trouble. I cannot remember the last hour of my life." We opened the clock because we had to make sure I made my rounds. Would have been my job. And we saw that I made them all. But during this opening of the clock and everything, I realized that my hand hurt. And I was like, what the hell? And she had to make sure, because the clock doesn't register the roof. Okay. That's the one key we turn that it doesn't show. And we went up there, and when we opened the door, there's this huge dent in the door that was not there before. And I was like, now what? Now what the hell's going on? Okay.
Yeah.
I know I'm a contactee. I'm fully conscious, but I've got this long episode of no memory, and I can't tell her nothing. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell just happened to me? And I kept looking at my hand, and I can see something's in there that wasn't there before. And I could feel it. It was uncomfortable. I went home that night. I made contact with Talata, and like, okay, we all did. What's going on? And I have an implant in my hand now. I don't know if you can see the shadow of it.
Here, hold up. Let's put you. Okay, there you go.
It's right here in that area.
Is that kind of protruding a little bit?
Yes. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
That's my implant, and it's like a key. And when you fly, there's a the only way I can describe it to you, it's an electromagnetic disc ball that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And when I am getting ready to fly and control the ship, I pass my consciousness into it. Talata passes his consciousness into it, and we meet, and we're able to communicate with one another directly. And I feel the ship through him as well.
The implant, is there any way to detect it? Is it something that you can X-ray?
I actually allowed a scan on my hand last year, and I did it. The girl who did the scan was shocked when she saw it. She was like asking me 10,000 questions. What is this? What is this? What is this? And I'm like, I don't know. I played stupid.
I mean, how does it come off? Is it like metal? Is it some kind of bioorganic thing?
I know what it is, but I'm not allowed to tell you its components. But what you see on an X-ray and a scan is that my bone is crowned up, and inside the crown of bone is a ball. Okay, and it's in a shape.
Okay.
And there's also another piece that's below it. And if you were to visualize it, it'd probably look like an ankh in my hand. Okay. And
interesting.
Yeah. And
this is not at all unusual for contactees. Many of them do go to the doctor and they're like, what's this in your ankle? What is this in your leg? What is this in your jaw?
Yeah, Preston, where are we now with that? I mean, remember the days of Dr. Lear would remove implants from people. And those seem to be like these kind of, most often, these little tiny metallic or crystalline type implants. But that's not what this sounds like, Dolly. It sounds different.
Yeah, it is. I have one of those in my nasal sinus cavity. I pulled the first one they put in there out before I was awake. I literally got rid of it. Just got rid of it. And they're like, no, it's coming back. And they put it back in. I had another one when I was really small behind my ear, before they knew what hand I was dominant in, and they moved it. I don't have it behind this ear. It's just up in my sinus. I also have another one in my thigh, up, right next to my femur. The purpose of them is to monitor your body systems, to make sure that you're not being poisoned or something's not wrong with you. If I expire, they'll know it instantly. That implant will let them know, the one up here. The one in my hand is so that I can fly the craft safely. It activates that ball. I can psychically connect to the ball, tell it to let's go. And it's also like there are two kinds of ways that I fly. When I fly with Tolada, I don't have a Faraday cage over me. I have a seat that protects me from electricity bolting me because I'm in a seriously charged electromagnetic environment. And the two pads underneath my feet are grounding for me. They protect me from that connection happening to me. But when I'm falling, the smaller craft actually have a type of Faraday cage in them, and I'm inside the Faraday cage. You would call it a Faraday cage. So, yeah.
Okay. We're going to hold it there, Dolly. We're coming up to the first break. And Preston, I do want to get your thoughts on, what we should be doing regarding abductees and implants and what's ethical and what's not. And Dolly, as we go to the break, if I can ask you to just check your connection on your headphones, because I think we're getting some feedback, and that might be if the headphone is not plugged in properly or the settings. So that'll give you a few minutes to do that while we come back from this break. This is Alan B. Smith on Paranormal Now on the Paranormal Pop YouTube channel, rebroadcast every Tuesday, 2 a.m. on the UNX network, the best network for all of your alternative paranormal and ufological shows and news. This is Alan B. Smith. We'll be right back from this inverted upside down. Quick break. This coffee is delicious. Is that a UFO? I'm actually seeing a UFO. This coffee is awesome. That's why they call it alien coffee bean. Is this even made on Earth? Hey all. Paranormal Now will be syndicated on the UNX network, the new mainstream, where you can find your favorite hosts and shows on the cutting edge of ufological and paranormal news and topics. Listen for Paranormal Now rebroadcast on the X at 2 a.m. EST Fridays, 11 p.m. PST Thursdays at unxnetwork.com. Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your most grateful host. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are in a wild ride with Dolly Safran and Preston Dennett. If you have any thoughts on this week's congressional hearing on the UAP phenomena, I would love to hear what you have to say. Please drop those in the chat. And in the chat as well, if you have questions for Dolly and Preston, I will be keeping my eyes peeled, and we'll get those questions up for you. And if you enjoyed this interview and all the other interviews on this channel, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. And of course, click the notification bell so you don't miss all the upcoming content and pop-up shows that we'll do on this channel. All right, we're back. Dolly, Preston, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Preston, regarding the implant phenomena, allegedly by ETs and perhaps interdimensionals, or whatever it might be. What do you think is the right thing for us to do? Do we remove those implants? Do we let it be?
Well, it's very interesting. I can see why the ET implant removals have taken place, which was largely spearheaded by Dr. Roger Leir, the late Dr. Roger Leir. As far as I know, research into that has not been as active. But I will say that most people I've talked to who have these things do not want them removed. I have been told, Dolly was not the first to tell me, what they think the purpose of these implants is, which is to monitor health, to boost the immune system, to measure the levels of pollution in your body. This is what people have been told directly by the ETs. In the cases, I've investigated personally. And of course, I have seen this in the literature as well. I know there's a case in England involving a young man who says, no, you can't touch my implant. I will never let you remove it. It's for my own good. So, and one lady I did interview who did have her implant removed by Dr. Roger Leir was visited subsequently a week or two later.
Yeah.
And she was reimplanted. So I think it's important to recognize that there are good purposes for these implants. I think that is their primary purpose. I would recommend not removing them. Yeah. That's my recommendation as someone who's researching the subject, but I can't fault someone who wants to find out what it is.
Well, is it a worthwhile endeavor? Is it for the greater good of science for us to be doing implant extractions, or indeed is it better to let the individuals benefit from whatever benefits they think that they're getting from it?
Well, I can tell you that there are people who have removed them. They will disappear. They put them in envelopes, secure locations, and zoom, they're taken away.
They're gone.
So I think to a certain extent, it's going to be difficult to do. But yeah, I think they do represent smoking gun evidence. Seriously. I mean, Roger Leir's work is groundbreaking in this regard. Some of the implants he had actually were giving off electromagnetic signals that could be measured by an EMF detector. This is amazing stuff. I think it's great proof. So on one hand, I think, yes, this should be put forth into the scientific community.
Yeah.
You can't say UFOs aren't real because we have smoking gun evidence. But on the other hand, I wouldn't, I'm not sure I would want my implant removed.
Dolly, what other than flying a ship, what benefits come from an implant for you?
From my perspective, it's going to be a little weird for you to hear this. I know I am implanted, and it's kind of comforting to me. It's a form of connection to them when I'm not with them. They know what's happening to me at all times, and that comforts me a great deal. This is a crazy place everybody lives in here, and I've learned to accommodate the backup,
Yeah.
So,
so there's no. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just curious why science hasn't done this. Lots of people have implants. You can see them under the skin. You can X-ray them. They're there, and it perplexes me a great deal why scientists haven't got together and formed a place where you can go and study the implant without ripping it out of the body. Nobody's done that.
I know why. I mean, I suspect why, because there is a cover-up. And recently I was contacted by a guy in the Midwest who went to the doctor because his daughter had an implant. And he pulled him aside, closed the door, made sure no one was saying something. Listen, we've been told not to talk about these. And I've talked to doctors, and they say, yes, we see these all the time.
But can you reach all of the doctors, all over the world and get them in on this? That seems really almost impossible.
I think it's a brilliant idea, actually, Yeah. If you want proof of contact, there you go,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I have a case from Indiana where they sent me the x-rays, and I sent them to medical professionals, and both were shocked, like, wow, this is a metallic foreign body, and it's under a 14-year-old boy's back lower molar. It's excellent evidence. You cannot say that this is natural. There's no entry wound. It's asymptomatic. He doesn't want it removed. You'd have to take his tooth out because it is under the molar. But yeah, excellent evidence, and it should definitely be more studied.
Dolly, so there's no physical benefits that you're aware of from the implants?
The physical benefit to me of my hand implant is that I'm not being electrocuted every time I fly. That
Gotcha.
does help me
Okay.
from that. Yeah.
And are you able to detect any kind of like EMF or any kind of electromagnetic?
Every now and then, the one on my thigh will vibrate. And some people, I'll let you look at it. I'll let you feel it, palpate it, whatever you want to do. But there are some people, for some reason, it doesn't want them to touch it, and it actually moves away from their hand and goes deeper. And I find that interesting. When it does it, it vibrates, and it's happened to me more than one time. So yeah,
I've had this. I haven't had it in a while actually, but I used to get this kind of phantom like vibration in
that's
my
it.
thigh, but it's because of my cell phone. I'm pretty sure. Like I used to, it was always in the same exact where my cell phone was. It was like psychosymptomatic in my head. Like I was kind of imagining there was a buzzing there, but now I'm concerned because I'm wondering was something else going on there. But I think it was just the type of cell phone that I had at the time.
Palpate your thigh. Use 2 fingers. Feel into your flesh. Push in. Move it around. See if you can't find it. If you run into a little round ball, you found it. There it is.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly haven't come across anything like that that I can make. But now, of course, I'm gonna have to check later.
Yeah, my brother had a very close-up sighting, and it was a couple of years later, some years later, that my sister-in-law, who married my brother, was kind of massaging his arm and said, "Hey, what's this?" And you could palpate it. It was this little tiny rod, and there was no scar. They had no idea what it was. I took him, Mark, my brother, to a medical doctor who is also a UFO researcher, a MUFON field investigator, and his eyes went real wide. It's like, oh my God, what's this? Where did it come from?
Yeah.
My brother had a very close-up sighting, and whenever someone is like within 50 feet of a UFO, I've come to realize there's deeper levels of contact almost every time. I'm not going to say they were taken on board, but
Sure.
Definitely it's not just a sighting.
Right. Okay. We have a question here from Michael Kennedy for Dolly. Dolly mentions an ankh-like structure, ET implant, which implies a connection to ancient Egyptian commonality. My question is on the bags or buckets evidence it may depiction of the Anunnaki.
Oh yeah, in many
Anunnaki
depictions.
pictograph. Yes. Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
ETs have been around a long time. They've known us for eons. They are our progenitors. And there are civilizations that they actually did do openly visit. And Egypt is one of them. And one king in particular, one pharaoh. And he developed a whole religion around it. He was so enamored of them and what they were doing. So the ankh is a symbol of that. In some of the hieroglyphs where you see them carrying a little purse, and then everybody started noticing that everybody had a little purse. The Anunnaki did, the Babylonians did, all the way to South America. Okay. Inside that purse is that little ball that I start up and it becomes bigger that I can throw my consciousness into. Every pilot who flies has one. I don't have one here. God forbid anybody should get their hands on it. But it's in a little purse-like thing that belongs to me. And it is when I throw my consciousness here.
And I will say that many contactees have told me that the ships themselves are alive. Also, several of them have reported being placed in the pilot seat and said, "Here, we'll show you how to fly it."
Right. So, Dolly, can these, I guess what you described as like android-like?
Yeah, the little grays, they're about 3 feet tall. They're very, very thin. They're AI. They're biological AI. And they're the workers for all ET ethnicities. Gamma radiation is a big deal in space. They can't spend a lot of time out there. It will affect them as adversely as it would affect us. And so they send them out. They do the jobs of that. When they're not running or working for them, they turn them off. and
Right.
they put them in a place,
Yeah,
stack
yeah.
them up.
I believe, Alan, you might have a drawing that Dolly did
I
of one of
do.
these
Yeah.
little AI grays, which was really cool to see because having heard them described by so many people, yeah, this is the AI gray, which is not a biological being as we would think of it. They're not born, they don't die. You can turn them off. These are the ones who don't have, emotions like we think of them. So people will think, oh, they're so cold, they show no empathy and so forth. Well, that's true. These are the guys who come down and often scoop people up. And then you meet the taller grays who do have empathy, who are loving and do care for you. And many people have told me they have never felt such love as they felt from some of these mid-size or taller grays.
Mm-hmm. Now, this depiction here, it looks very similar to a typical gray, but rather than all black, right? There's the pupils of the eyes are
All
darker black. Yeah, go
right,
ahead.
ETs have different eyesight from us. They're the makeup of their cornea and the rods that are in their eyes that see color and stuff like that. They're extremely sensitive, and they see into the ultraviolet and ranges, and
Yeah.
it is serious for them. So most of them have blue eyes, actually, but they wear a lens over their eyes that protects them from our light. Earth light, sunlight is really bright. I can attest to that. It drives me crazy, and so that's why you see them with a dark lens. If you were to see one on board a craft, you would see the lens missing. You would see the actual eye, their eye.
I see. Okay. And then this other sketch here, this is a tall gray. You call,
Yes,
quote, mama.
Mama. This is Mama. I've known
That's
Mama
the one
since I
you
was
were
about
speaking of.
6. Yes, yeah,
Right. Okay.
and she is my liaison.
She's your liaison. And how old is she? How?
She's over 800 years now. She's still alive.
Wow.
She's awesome.
So you must have siblings. Now, are these hybrid siblings, or are you a hybrid? Like, how does that work?
I am hybrid. I am genetically related to mostly my father. I'm related to my mother as well, but there's a chunk of DNA on me that doesn't match my mother at all, and that's my hybridization.
All right.
And so
So that
Yeah.
DNA would look human, or because that's always the question that comes up with people who say that they're hybrids or have some genetic splicing going on, is why can't we just isolate those genes and go, aha, look, this is definitely not a human gene.
actually,
So
they can, and they have. You just don't know the truth of that. It's one of the reasons they wanted to catch the entire Human Genome Project, because they're looking for us. Okay,
well, it's interesting because like Ancestry and what have you, you're sending that away and you're expecting them to be honest, right? And just send you that
yeah,
information back truthfully.
right. I have
So
more than one genetic service, so yeah.
yeah, and so I guess how do they like when you get a report back from a genetic testing, how do they cover that up, or how do they
They didn't in my case. I
frame it?
actually had a counselor call me and say, you have some interesting things going on. Let's talk. And so they asked me about some of the things that are going on with me. I'm what you call genetically here a Heinz 57 Mad Dog mix. I got a little bit of everybody in me here, and I think that they did that to confuse. Well, actually, there's a reason for that. They've been watching my family. I'm a genetic. My family lines are contactees all the way back on my dad's side. My mom's family has contact also, but my mom didn't like it. No, refused to talk about it. I have some peculiarities in my genome, and so that's expressed out differently. I have some anomalies going on that most people here don't have. So things like that. Yeah, I'm a super healer.
This is not unusual with contactees. They often have very, very genetics. Many of them tell me, well, I did go to ancestry.com and they traced me all back to the, original humans, having a, Native American blood and, just Pacific Islander and Nordic. And I mean, all of it is not uncommon. One guy I talked to, his name is Don. he went to get his genetics done because he's a contactee, and they were shocked. Almost all his genetics come from his father, which is a very rare condition, but does happen. Yeah, so there are some very interesting, and I think it's a tricky situation here because the fact is a lot of us are probably hybrids
Yes.
truly. And I'm not so sure we even originated on this planet. I mean, we didn't. We have
Nope.
human looking ETs out there. What does that say about human origins? And the
Right,
fact
yeah.
is the Greys share our genetics. Every contactee I talk to, I'm not going to say every, but often they will say, we are you, you are us. We are one.
Yeah.
We are,
Oh yeah. Aren't we like 98% similar to an ape? And these aliens seem to look even closer to us. So maybe we're 99.9% the same, and we're all still using the same genes or chromosomes, right? To create who we are. It's really just about how it's arranged.
All humans, all entities living in the entire universe have DNA. And all our DNA is exactly the same, except that it expresses out differently. You're
Right.
related to the animals on this planet, almost identically related to them. I'll give you, for instance, sheep have the same blood types we do, same blood. Goats have the same identical genetic composition milk as our own mother's milk. That's why goat milk is a really great go-to for mothers who can't lactate to go to. It's safer than cow milk. There are billions and billions of similarities, and it's like that throughout the entire universe. If you're a living organism, you've got DNA, and we're all interrelated to one another. And we're also, with the Greys, especially with the Greys, and what you all want to call the Nordics, we can breed back and forth. So
Kate Walker says in her comment, mine said I am more Neanderthal, referring to her genetic testing, more Neanderthal than 85% of people, or something like that. And that's kind of the point, is that there's this varied history of different types of hominids that have lived on this planet, come and gone, and there is a spattering of different types of DNA. How do we know one of those previous hominins weren't a genetic spliced, offshoot caused by some sort of intervention? And I do think that if DNA is similar throughout the entire universe, or at least this galaxy, then it would kind of make sense to me that no matter what planet, evolution occurs on, that perhaps it tends to turn out similarly in the long run. And maybe there's different types of dinosaurs, reptiles and birds and mammals on other planets.
yes,
Is that what they've told you, Dolly? I mean, are the other
I've
planets
seen it.
similar to us?
I've actually seen it, and yes, we're all pretty much across the board. There's all kinds of interesting plants, trees, pine trees type things. It is all symmetrical. Our whole universe is a huge physical construct that we all dwell in, and there are 12 dimensions within that construct, and we live in the third dimension. And Talat is actually a fifth dimensional being who is in the same dimensional space as us and interacts with us and works with the ETs. We are interrelated. It's all the same thing. The symmetry of life in our universe is interrelated. It's integral to each other. We help one another. It is our ecological place that we are all together, and we all have a niche. Some of us can breed with one another, and that's how it is.
Yeah, that's why the book is called Symmetry, actually.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a fractal universe. I mean, it all comes down to a mathematical sort of equation unfolding, before our eyes. I'm putting the link to your YouTube channel, Dolly, in the chat. So if anybody else wants to go check out her channel, and Preston is at prestondennett.weebly.com if you want to check that out. So how do people find the book, by the way?
Oh, it's on Amazon, other online retailers. You can also go to my website and read a little excerpt. I'm doing sort of interviews with Dolly and about my other research on my own YouTube channel. Dolly's story is important. I mean, it's really groundbreaking, and I want to say unique, but I know it's not unique because there are other people out there. They just haven't really come forward, not yet, at least.
But it's unique in the full spectrum of concerns and messages that they have shared with you, Dolly. Let's start with you individually and what we can work out to humanity as a whole. What have they told you, these ETs, that has helped you as a person grow spiritually, for lack of a better word, or psychologically?
I realized that I am a consciousness that's eternal, that I live in source with everybody else. We all know each other. And that in source, I have all information from the whole entire universe, the all mind itself, that I can access and enjoy knowing and speaking and thinking about. What I've learned is that this physical construct that we're in, this dimension, we come here to learn. When you know everything, you still don't have the wisdom of that education. You don't have the experience of it. It's just something you know. And we come here to physically learn and experience all knowledge. And it makes us wise. We wear it. It becomes part of our consciousness. And we actually start to evolve consciously that way. We go higher and higher and higher in our intelligence. We go higher in our moral amplitude. We go higher in our wisdom, understanding, and we're able to employ then that knowledge. We're able to wield it as if, and the whole point is to just raise yourself up, learn all that's learnable, and then proceed.
Well, what have you done to change, since you had these revelations? Like, what does Dolly do now that's different?
Well, when I was younger, I searched through my karmic self. In other words, I wanted to know who I was, why I was. I was psychically opening and remembering things from past lives, things like that. And I realized that I had joined in this life to do a job. I have a path, but I'm also dragging karma with me. And so I went on a quest to resolve this karma. And basically that's what I do. And it's not easy, we're all working it out. So it has changed me in that I'm not so Valkyrian in my attitudes anymore. I was a little Valkyrie when I was younger, I was spitfire. And I've learned to be more present, conscious, more loving, more forgiving, more understanding, that kind of thing. So yeah.
I'm still working on that, Dolly. That's for sure. And sometimes it is a lifelong journey. And I think that there's no plateau, right? There's no I've reached perfection, I'm done. There's always some growth.
You can always something you can grow into. Yes. Yeah. It's unlimited.
Now, is karma okay? Let's first define for you what karma is, and then the question is, do ETs experience karma as well?
Yes, everybody does. All entities experience karma. We are autonomous beings. We may be all in source together, but we're still all individuals. And we have the right to our path. In other words, to experience and learn for ourselves. Karma is the lesson plan itself. I come here once to learn about what it meant to be an idiot and experience the drama of learning from my stupidity, okay? Or I learned not to be jealous, or I learned not to hurt other people's feelings, or these are minor types of karma that you work on, and they exponentially, as you go through your existence, get greater and greater and greater, and the lessons become more and more and more complex. I had the karma of learning to not consider only myself. I'm at that point now where I realize that I am not alone. I have everybody in front of me. And one of the most important things that I can evolve into is to realize that without love, without helping one another, without being present for one another and reaching out, I'm nothing. And so I'm at that point in my karma. If you've got karma unfinished from a previous life or two, you're going to re-roll into that every life you go forward to until you finish that and move on.
Is that for some, it sounds like an excuse for suffering? How do you reconcile that?
Suffering is a way to learn something. If you don't know what suffering is, how can you express joy? How can you understand the joy that's right behind that? If you don't understand that, okay, I'll give you, for instance, this is my first shock and awe for this one, okay?
Sure.
When I was young and I was in ET's presence, if I did something totally stupid, I got deadpan faces from them. They went dead silent. They just stare at me. And I knew instantly from their reaction to me that I just crossed the line. I did something that's not okay. And I was like, oh no, explain it. What did I do? And they literally remain quiet. What do you think you did? You know? And I would have to replay the moment that their faces changed and remember what I just done or said or thought or felt or whatever. And then I would realize what that entailed and what it meant, and that I was either being unwise, I was either being unkind, judgmental, you know. That's why morality is so important, because you can walk through the juggernaut of all morality and realize that you break that stuff up every day. Okay. And I had to learn how to understand what I did. I had to learn how to make amends for what I did. And then I had to learn how to teach myself to change. Okay. It isn't up
Sure.
to other people to change. You don't have the right to judge anybody. Okay. That karma strictly enforces that rule. You judge, you're going to be judged. Okay. So you have to learn how to gauge how you reacted to, why am I judging this person? Why do I feel like I do about it? What's going on with me? And then you need to explore that and work it out for yourself. It's very important. It's hard work.
So
it's painful.
Yeah, I talked to another lady who was largely a fully conscious contactee, not for most of her life, but really woke up to it. And she had a car accident in Georgia by coincidence, where she was very severely injured. And she was pulled from the scene of the car accident by the ETs, who said, you pretty much died in this accident. You weren't supposed to. We're going to repair your brainstem, which was severed. And they healed her of all these really severe injuries. And they said, we're very sorry. And they placed her back in the scene of the accident afterwards. And the first responders were very puzzled because she was lying next to the accident. She didn't have a mark on her face. But the ETs told her, speaking to karma, that we cannot heal all your injuries because some of these are karmic. We have to face the consequences of our actions. This is how we learn. If they were to fix everything, we wouldn't learn. Every parent knows this.
But they're not like godlike beings, right?
No, not at all. No. Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. We're going to hold it here. We're going up to the second and last break. When we get back, we will learn what their messages are for us as human beings. Are we doing this on our own, or are they actually giving us a helping hand? This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on the Paranormal Pop YouTube channel, rebroadcast on the UNX network every Tuesday, 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you are a fan of this channel, and if you appreciate this episode, please like, comment down below, and subscribe. And of course, hit the notification bell for future content. This is Alan B. Smith. We will be right back.
Tell me why, with 12 sides, the odds are that we die, roll the die, as you hide, I can't find you on the other side of the
This coffee is delicious. Is that a UFO? I'm actually seeing a UFO. This coffee is awesome. That's why they call it alien coffee bean. Is this even made on Earth? Hey y'all. Paranormal Now will be syndicated on the UNX network, the new mainstream, where you can find your favorite hosts and shows on the cutting edge of ufological and paranormal news and topics. Listen for Paranormal Now rebroadcast on the X at 2 a.m. EST Fridays, 11 p.m. PST Thursdays at unxnetwork.com.
keep on coming, they point to the end, but I hold on so tight.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith. We are streaming live on youtube.com/paranormalpop and rebroadcast at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the UnX network, the best network for all of your alternative, cryptid, and paranormal news, including UFO news, which has been very exciting this week. And so I have to bring this up with our guests, Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran. Preston, let's start with you. What was your take overall on the Tuesday UAP congressional hearing?
Oh, I feel a little bit schizophrenic about it because on one hand, it's really awesome. I mean, it's really cool to see UFOs being discussed seriously and to hear them use the word extraterrestrial. But boy, was I upset when they said, caught them in lies. They were asked specifically about the Malmstrom incident. Very famous incident in 1967 Montana, where UFOs came down and basically shut down our nuclear-tipped missiles. A very clear message from the ETs about the dangers of nuclear weapons. And they said, no, we have no information on that. No one informed us. Like, really? You're the director of intelligence and you haven't heard of it? That was a lie. Clearly, everyone knows about Malmstrom. They were asked, have the military ever shot at a UFO? They flat out said no. And I instantly thought of many cases, including the 1942 Battle of LA incident, where we shot 1,400 rounds of ammunition.
Sure.
So, I mean, it just went on and on with these. I hate to
We
say
also
lies.
have pilot testimonies from decades past that would contradict that as well.
Yeah, they showed this tiny little thing flit by a plane. I'm like, well, that's really the best footage you got? Are you? And I think what upset me most is they're talking about, well, we have 144 sightings. Wait, now we have 400 sightings. I'm like, well, what about the landing trace cases? Are you not going to mention the hundreds upon hundreds of thousands?
Yeah.
More than that of people who've been taken on board. Nope, no word of that. They did mention Roswell as if it was a complete myth. I'm like, oh, gosh. Yeah, I was frustrated ultimately, and I just don't think they're ever going to be forthcoming.
Well, Dolly, from your perspective as a contactee, what's your take on perhaps soft disclosure or whatever this might be?
They're never going to admit the truth. I know this.
Never.
ET knows this. Never. They have an agenda. They have a plan. It's being implemented. One of the things that they're going to, and I'm surprised I haven't heard anybody say this yet, that meeting they had, congressional meeting at the end, ended up where they were talking about spending lots of money to do lots of investigating. They were creating new offices for everybody. They were spreading the money around. And it didn't dawn on a single human being who was talking that this was not about disclosure. This was about them wanting to implement something and they needed funding for it.
Right. Now, what my positive that I took away from this is the same positive that I took out of the assessment report in last summer, and that is that they are saying basically our systems that we're using to detect these things are not calibrated for the types of performances and the objects that we're calling UAPs, and that they need to work on new systems, new calibrations specifically to study these types of objects, which is just another way of saying they are indeed UFOs. They're behaving in ways that are seemingly defying aerodynamics as their systems are calibrated to understand. What's your take on that? Is that a positive for you, Dolly or Preston?
It's a bald-faced lie. They've been able to detect ET for a long time. That is a bald-faced lie. That's one of the biggest lies I've heard, period. They know all about them. They have specific radar systems developed exactly to detect them. Are you kidding? The ISS knows when they're around so they can move the daggone cameras. There's tons of evidence to the contrary. No, they're not telling you the truth. Not. No.
Yeah, we know this from whistleblowers. I mean, people worked at Cheyenne Mountain have come forward and say they were detected daily. And that was interesting when they talked about USOs. unidentified submersible objects. And they're like, well, we can't answer that. That's for the confidential part of this testimony. Oh, I want to be in there when they're talking about the confidential part, because that's, I think, they're probably going to tell more truth. But
Yeah,
even the senators that were asking questions, I'm like, oh, someone needs to educate these guys.
Also, it is a rather short session as well. The positive I see here is I'm looking at it from their perspective, thinking we have to warm the public up to this idea, and maybe it's not best to start with the hardest evidence, which would just basically be we're being visited by ETs.
How much of the public do you think knows about UFOs right now? How conscious is our globe in awareness to who they are?
Those who think of it as purely entertainment, 15%. The rest, I think, understand it as something that people take seriously, and many of those do take seriously.
How many of those have had
Yeah.
sightings alone? How many do you think?
Oh gosh, I really don't. That's very difficult to say.
1 in 40. It's not. They calculated it. It's 1 in 40. Okay?
Is that worldwide or just
yes,
within
1
the
in
US?
40 worldwide? Absolutely,
Worldwide.
1 in 40. Yeah, I will tell you something that I know that only I can back this up, but I'm giving you the absolute truth. ET has contacted every single human being on this planet. They have watched over us. They keep abreast of who we are, what we are, why we are, and they have nothing to say to the government about anything. They do not communicate with them in any way. Yet the government will have you think, or they spread rumors and myths and delusional ideas that yes, they do. No, they do not. Their narrative right now is false flag. Okay, that's what they're about. They have, it's all national security, period, the end. We have the right to protect ourselves. So
it's all about threat, right?
Exactly.
Threat. Danger to our pilots, which, I mean, of course, that's a legitimate concern. But I don't know how else you convince the public to
ever
spend money
shot
on this.
anybody down, ever, you would know about it instantly. That would fit into their narrative instantaneously. If one pilot got injured by ET, it would be all over the news worldwide. Never doubt that for a second. And it has not occurred. Okay? This is where I start to get a little testy. It is not. What you've seen on this planet is this. You've seen governments, principalities, mayors, monarchs, you name it, do nothing to help its own people. There's war, there's famine, there's food shortages, there's about to be starvation, there are diseases, and they sit there like the owners of us all that they think they are and tell you lies constantly. And yet, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be cruel to you about this, but you're worried about what they think and whether this is real or not. This bothers me greatly. Humanity needs to wake up to what's really going on around. I'm sorry, you do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that they must be worried. Which the only worry I can imagine is that there is maybe a fraction of the public that would jump to some extreme conclusion, whether it's religious and they think they're demons, and
no, they're not. No, not at all, because their agenda follows a different narrative than the one that you're thinking. That is not why they think the way they do, and that's not the narrative. That's what they're telling you to distract from the truth. No, we have a huge cataclysm coming at us. Our planet's about to royally change, and they're going to protect themselves from it. The 1% power elite have already figured it out. They have a huge seed bank up in the north. They've got supercomputers that are calculating everything as we speak. They've feathered their nest. They've got underground shelters everywhere. They're planning to survive it, and you are expendable, my dear. And I'll give you a clue why. And you have to realize how many people on this planet are about to starve. How our NASDAQ dropped 1,100 points this morning. We have huge problems here that they are pushing into existence, and yet everybody's going la 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 la, and they're worried about what the government thinks. They want you to. They've pushed anger, they've pushed fear, they've pushed negativity on everybody. There's violence in our streets. Okay, they've got you so bamboozled with so many different things all at one time, so that you don't narrowly see what's really going on. And
it's always been about distractions.
Yes, for the last 80 years, this has been known. It's been known since World War II. Do you know what the Carrington event is?
I do. Yeah.
That was the shot across our bow. Our planet is in deep doo-doo. Our sun has changed its polarity. Every planet in our solar system is in the process of doing that right now. Neptune just went over. They have shots of it happening. Our magnetosphere is down. You're taking on heavy loads of gamma radiation because of it. You want to know why in the last 80 years there's cancer and there's mind disorders and there's autoimmune disorders and there's all this other kind of autism, all of it? Do you know why? Because your DNA is breaking down from too much gamma radiation coming in on you. They don't want you to know. Period.
Is it just gamma ray? Because I just being exposed to the amount of electromagnetic frequencies with all the devices and stuff. I mean, it's like when you're in a room
That
full of
also.
electronics.
It
Too
is not the
long.
only thing. They're using that to control you. Period. The end. They're bombarding you with negative energy with that. They're
So then,
misleading you.
what are the ETs telling you to say? Hey, this is how you should, how we as humanity should deal with that.
They want you to wake up. Their message, and I'm bringing it. They did not tell me to do this. This is all me. Okay. 7 years ago, I woke up one day and I said, I can't stand it anymore here. I can't believe that everybody's walking around thinking all this stuff and they don't know. I've known my entire life. Okay. Because I was raised by them. Their message is this. I spent a year being briefed by them about what I've got coming at me by saying what I say. Okay. First thing is, I want you not to believe everything I tell you. I want you to look it up. I want you to resource and figure it out for yourself. And the only way you're going to do that is first this. Start using your psychic abilities. You're innately psychic. You have a right to it. It's part of your genome. And you have been bombarded and poisoned to the point that you can't use it openly right now. And you need to do whatever is necessary to get there. That's their first message. They can hear you, but you can't hear them. We should not be having this discussion in reality, but we are. And that is this is crazy what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be discussing it with you if they didn't think it was necessary.
Absolutely. They have
I mean, I recently had a bit of a psychic, what I would maybe call law of attraction, or anyway, it was just, I was just talking to a friend of mine who's in this field, and just saying it's nice when those moments happen, where you're just reminded how real it is. And so what
instead of living in fear and confusion and anxiety and knowing what's going on for you around you, you would be able to do that if you were wide open psychic. You understand this, correct?
Oh,
and
yeah.
you conceive of it. Okay.
But you have to work towards it. I mean, it doesn't just come naturally, right?
It does come naturally. That's the whole point. You're born with a pineal gland in your brain.
Well, I don't mean naturally. I don't mean naturally, literally. I just mean that people were raised a certain way, so now you're an adult, or
right. You're going to have to go back and reteach yourself a whole bunch of stuff. And yes, it's going to be difficult, but it's not impossible. And it's good news for you, actually, because the more you wake up and see, the better chance you have of raising your consciousness and your wisdom and elevating yourself. Right now, nobody's really doing that. Okay.
Yeah. Part of the problem, I think, is our culture is so steeped in fear. So that's one important thing people just need to do, is recognize that the universe is in fact safe. You will not perish no matter what happens. There is life after death. And the primary agenda, one of them, certainly from the ETs, is trying to wake people up psychically. As a rule, contactees are profoundly spiritually awakened. They come away from their experiences. I mean, this goes both ways. ETs love people who are already psychic, but they will wake you up in a way that is amazing. So what we see in contactees, as a rule, is they come back with the ability to do hands-on healing, astral travel, past life recall, precognition. I mean, you name it. Telepathy. They communicate with telepathy. We need to wake up. We are telepathic. As Dolly is saying, these are natural human abilities which have been scared out of us. And with the pollution, we need to start eating organically, meditate. And I think, we are in very interesting times right now. It's a good time to garden. It's a good time to have a good supply of food. It's a good time to think about moving off grid. It's a good time to stop depending on grocery stores and government and looking to them for answers, because they're not going to tell the truth. We
Yeah.
know this.
Right.
This is why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
my wife and I, we've made, changes in our lives all, towards most of these kinds of ideas. And
I'm
sometimes you just
pleased
get
for
an
you.
instinct. You get an
That's awesome.
instinct. You get an instinct, and you just gotta listen to it sometimes and go with it.
Yeah.
Even though change can be really, really, really challenging.
Well, nothing
It
worth
can
doing is worth doing easily. If it's hard, you know you're doing it right.
most of
I'm
the
going to
time.
give
I
you a hint.
agree. Yeah.
There are whistleblowers, and then there are people who knew about this, genuinely knew about it, and left things in place so that when you were starting to wake up, you had something to go to. You know who Russell Targ is, correct?
Russell Targ.
Yes.
I don't think so.
I
Psychic
want you to look him
researcher.
up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
He worked for the government actually, but he was profoundly psychic. Okay. And he developed some tools for everybody when they wanted to start waking up. That was his
Mhm.
greatest wish. This was his path, his karmic journey. And he left them in place so that when you went to go start working at this, you had a resource, a tool. I'm going to give it to you right now. I want you specifically to remember this. Write it down. It is called Psychic Trainer. You can get it at the App Store. It works on iPhone. It works on Apple. It works on PCs. It is
Now,
your
when you,
first. Go
I was gonna
ahead.
say, when you say you're speaking like the royal you to everybody listening.
No, I'm talking about you. I'm speaking directly to you.
All right.
You. You're right on the brink of it. Okay, you got to remember that I am intuitive. I am psychic, and I can tap you at any time. I
What's the
wouldn't do it
psychic
without
app called
permission.
again?
It's called Psychic Trainer.
Trainer. Okay, psychic trainer.
Okay, and you go to the Play Store, and it'll come right up. It's the one sponsored by Russell Targ, and you download it and you start playing with it. It will teach you when you're doing psychic right and when you're doing it wrong. And you will find that after playing it, practicing it every day, you get better and better and better. And then suddenly your pineal gland is going to start really opening up, and you're going to start having all kinds of psychic experiences. You're going to see what's going on around you.
Yeah, I remember used to doing exercises where you kind of imagine a building and like you're moving up floor by floor by floor. I have a question or a comment question from Michael Kennedy. It's an interesting one. Can the guests speak on the concept of a topic from Dr. Stephen Greer in which 1% of the population becomes aware that a instant evolution of the masses could occur? Do you believe that to be
I
true?
know exactly what he's talking about. And
Mhm.
consciousness is an interesting thing. If you got 1% of the entire population on this planet to simultaneously go into meditation and psychically broadcast how to open up, how to become psychically connected, and make that connection to everybody like a light beam everywhere, there is a high probability that almost everybody, as a matter of fact, will be profoundly affected by that. He is correct.
Yeah, there's real science behind that. We have mirror neurons in our brain. And this is like what mob mentality is. And when an idea sweeps through humanity, everyone starts vibrating at that frequency, so to speak. So yeah, the 100th monkey effect, that sort of thing is absolutely.
How do we define that though, Preston and Dolly? How do we define what that is? Because you have people who've been meditating, Buddhists, you have Hindu and yogis, you have Christians who take the time to reflect and pray. So there are lots of people that are trying to connect to divine, to one love. So what's the missing component in that scenario?
Every single person on this planet, your desire to make it happen. You are not one of the mob, you are one in the mob. Okay? You. Your abilities are paramount. You want to hear the universe talking, you want to hear ET talking, you must open that pathway yourself. Okay.
So it sounds like it's a lack of I'm sorry, Dolly. It sounds like a lack of intention because
yes, exactly.
So like that, these big ideas, beautiful ideas, but we're not keyed in on the right intention, which like psychic development, for instance. So in theory, if you reach this 1% of psychic development, then that's like a critical mass where it's
now you're a little screwed up here. It's not the 1% of psychic development. It's the 1% of the entire population who are psychic will broadcast out. Okay.
Right.
Your development, your psychic development, only you That's why that game I gave you, that little thing, it will show you how well you're doing. It will gauge and mark your development as you go along. It will show you how well you're doing. It will give you percentages and stuff like that. You will understand when you're on and when you're off. That's important.
Understood. And Joan says, wow, I've been obsessed with Psychic Trainer. It's so fun. So yeah, there's other people catching on to this. That's interesting.
Yes.
Do you think technology could actually be the thing that spreads our evolution
No, absolutely not.
as
This
a
is a
tool?
game. When you're a baby and you're learning how to walk, you have a mama who teaches you how to walk, or dad. When you're learning the alphabet, somebody's guiding you through it, but they're not doing it for you. You're doing it for yourself. Technology wants you to accept their implants and their medical props to make you that way. Don't let that happen. It's innate in your body. You have the ability to do all this. You don't need a prop. You don't need a helper. It's all coming from you.
Do the ETs have like a dire sense of urgency
Yes,
that's expressed to
absolutely.
you?
Yes. We have 2.5 years before we go back to the Flintstone age. Okay. We're going to
That's
be,
soon.
yes. Yeah. We have, our sun is in solar maximum. Our magnetosphere is down. We're starting to throw some very significant CMEs. We're in a polar charged thing where we react to the sun. Our whole planet reacts. Everything about us reacts to being charged by the sun. The sun throws a CME at us. There's a absorption of this energy, and then the Earth reacts back out. That's why earthquakes. That's why electrical storms. That's why the aurora borealis. That's why the wind gets bad, or it heats up, or blah blah. Okay, our sun is going through physical anomalies because our sun is way out of control right now. When that CME hits us, the next class that's Earth facing and it's charged by solar wind and everything else, it will take us back to the Stone Age. And they're looking for about 2.5 years to contact with it. It'll happen.
And then, okay, so when that happens, what do they recommend we do?
Get off grid. Do it now. Be ready, because you're going to be taking care of yourself totally. You don't know how to feed yourself right now. You know how to go to the grocery store, but do you know how to use a bow and arrow and shoot and hunt? Do you know how to catch a fish? Do you know how to grow a garden? Do you know how to live without electricity? Because that's what's going to happen. Do you know how to find water? Do you know how to store all of this stuff and not die from poisoning, from botulism and things like that? These are all good and hard things that you must be working on. And it's important.
Are Preston and Dolly, are you guys ready for that? Are you both working on preparation?
Absolutely. We're both working towards that. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm now in LA, but I will be leaving here shortly.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, there's a million people around me in every direction. And that's not a hyperbole. It's more than that, actually.
Sure. So you're ready. Where are these ETs, the grays? How do you, first of all, how do you categorize what you call mama?
Mama is a tall gray, and she's about 6'2", and she's one ethnicity of the grays. There's several different ethnicities of the grays. Yeah.
Okay. And where do they hail from?
Mama hails from the Orion cluster.
Okay.
And she is most of the tall grays are from that area. What you consider Nordics are from there. There's some in Zeta Reticuli. There are grays in Zeta Reticuli, as a matter of fact. There are grays in a lot of places. They're probably the most, in this galaxy, the most frequent or common types of ETs. There are others also.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So, really quickly, what other kind of aliens are out there?
In our galaxy, there are Anunnaki. Everybody knows who they are. They go way back before Babylon.
Yeah.
There are ETs that look like Ra. They're bird-like, very majestic-looking ETs. There are ETs that look like Horus, dog-like. There are cat-like ETs. There are troll-like. One of the ethnicities is the gray. I absolutely love these guys. They look like trolls. They're like, midgets, little guys. and a kind of blue tinted skin. And they're the sweetest. Oh my God, they're just awesome. And they're probably responsible for creating AI grays, as a matter of fact. That's their big thing. There are mantids. I've seen a mantid, things like that. They're all over the spectrum, literally.
Right.
But they're all bipedal. They're all sentient, intelligent, communicating, psychic entity people.
And a friend, Jess Rogie, whose show you're on last night, says hello, Preston, hello Dolly. I love Jess. So you guys, you're getting the message out there. That's for sure. Where do you think? Okay, what's your sense of hope for humanity? Are you optimistic?
I am.
Yeah, we both are actually. Preston is way optimistic. Go ahead, Preston. I'm gonna let you talk.
Yeah, I'm an idealist. I'm an optimist. I think this is awesome news for us. I really do, because life on Earth has been so hard for thousands of years, and it hasn't stopped. We are at the point now where we cannot continue on this path. We are on the path of self-destruction. Our way of life is, not sustainable. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It's just not sustainable. The greed, the divisiveness, the pollution, the corruption. This is not the way we're supposed to be living. And now we have an opportunity to leave that behind. And so when this big change happens, it's going to be difficult for some people, yes. But remember, there is no such thing as death. If we shed our physical body, you actually go to a very, very nice place. I've had a lot of out-of-body experiences myself. I know this from firsthand experience. We all go out of body every night. The trick is just remembering it. This is something I would really recommend people do. But my point is, what will actually happen is very cool, because almost all contactees, I'm not going to say all, but a lot that I talk about having visions, dreams, or being told flat out that at some point the ETs will arrive in large numbers and scoop us off this planet and take us to another planet. And Dolly talks about this, and I was so encouraged, because Dolly was able to connect a lot of the dots for me, fill in the blanks, because I've talked to so many people, but they're often fear-based. They've got amnesia, memory problems. They're not fully awake, conscious contactees, whereas Dolly is. So she was able to really confirm a lot for me. I've heard pretty much everything she says from other people. But yes, this is great, great, great news for us. I'm so happy, because I can't imagine. I mean, this is like science fiction come true. It's going to be so much fun. I cannot wait.
Fun if the grid goes down?
Yeah, sure. Why not? you won't
Fun
be
for you if you're prepared. Yeah.
I don't know. Can you imagine not living in a bath of negativity every day? To be able to wake up in the morning and take a deep breath and not have 50,000 negative things coming at your head at one time. All you're concerned with is living your life. There's sweet joy in that. There really is.
Yeah, the Amish aren't even going to know the difference. The Amish are going to be like, what's going on?
Right. But I think consciously unplugging here and there is extraordinarily important to one's well-being. I like to be able to do it by choice, when I want to unplug, but I can understand perhaps that, certainly that would have an effect across all of society. What would be the long run effect? Maybe it would be positive. I've said this before. We can talk about all kinds of things about the pandemic, but one thing that was positive that came out of it was a lot of people stopped what they were doing. They were in the rat race, and they were just going, and they just couldn't get out of the thought, the wheel turning in their head. And a lot of people stepped back and were like, what am I doing with my life? And they made a complete left turn and took the time to reflect.
Right,
so
exactly.
there is something about that. Yeah.
You just made a huge point here, okay? We're on the slave train here, okay? When you step off the slave train, you realize that you have the ability to work on yourself and to see things and enjoy things as who you are. You become the royal you learn who you are, and you're given time to express that and to learn what that is and move forward with it. So that's a really big thing. Absolutely.
Dolly, what is the royal you? Do these ETs talk about the soul at all in that
Yes,
regard?
absolutely. Uh, you are a conscious, are you not? You think, you have a brain, you know
Mhm.
that you are, correct? I am that I am.
Self-aware,
Okay.
sure.
Your
Yeah.
consciousness is an entity that you project out of source in. We're all in source together. And you
Mhm.
are using this body as a carriage, a vehicle to go through a physical life and learn things while you're here. When you die, the royal you, your consciousness, goes there. The reason that it's a little scary for you is you're not connected, you're not psychically awake. The bridge between your psychic consciousness, which is
Mhm.
really thinking you, can't openly communicate with the physical mainframe of your brain. Your physical brain only
Okay.
talks to that consciousness while you're asleep because it can't avoid hearing it at that point. But you only
Yeah.
remember it as dreams, lucid dreams, that kind of thing. When you wake up psychically, that bridge snaps open and the royal you, your actual consciousness goes, holy cow. Okay. And your physical mind is like, I see it, I know. And you're in
Mhm.
total union with one another. There's the connection to one another, your physical mind and your conscious mind.
Yeah.
It's very important.
In order to achieve that, do the Greys ever recommend the use of things like DMT or
No,
ayahuasca?
absolutely not. No, You are capable of
Mm.
doing that without any outside interference, okay? And that's exactly what it would be. You would be locking your brain, your physical mind down so that it
Mhm.
can't talk to your real absolute consciousness. All of this is that's a drug that affects your mainframe, not the programming. The programming is your consciousness. And if you go into a loop of inside your brain, you can't get
Mhm.
out of it. You're not experiencing reality at that point. You're experiencing a delusion. Don't do it. Bad.
Um, animals keeps coming up. I see in chat as well, and obviously, Dolly, that's a passion of yours.
Correct.
Do extraterrestrials bring on board ever
Yes.
pets or animal? And yeah, and
Every
what?
animal in existence. Yeah. They don't. We're not going to experience total extinction from all our animals on this planet. They've been for
Mhm.
quite some time bringing them off and taking them to safety. Not all of them, they can't, but the majority of what they can get out of here, they've gotten out. No animal will be extinct. It is in safety as we speak. When this happens to the Earth, then everything goes south, and we have a micronova after that. Um, their genetics, their actual existence is ongoing. I call
Yeah.
ETs the gardeners of the universe because even our plants, our flora, our fauna, all of it is being preserved for us. Okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
other
not the
people have
guard.
talked
Not
about this. Other contactees have talked about this as well, and Dolly describes, in the book in detail about going on
Mhm.
to these very large motherships, which have animal husbandry centers and arboretums and
Yeah.
lakes filled with fish. And she talks about how she's been involved in personally scooping up animals that are in danger of extinction. So
Yes.
yeah, humans are not going to go extinct. Animals won't. I've written about this in prior books long before meeting Dolly, because this is a theme that turns up consistently.
Yeah. Do they have pets of their own ever that you've seen?
Um, on the world, yes. When they're on craft, they love everything. They love everybody, and some animals become very loved by them, but they don't attach themselves too much because these animals
Mm.
are being taken to safety and they won't be able to stay with them all the time.
Okay.
Yes, they do have personal animals on board, and like cats. Cats is a biggie. Dogs, not so much, but cats definitely. Some birds. You got to remember though that the size of the craft matters here in this situation.
Oh,
This
sure.
animal uh, will make the place dirty. It'll cause problems. It's noisy. Blah 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 blah. I have never taken an animal on board unless it was taken with me, and that was my German Shepherd Heidi. She would go with me because they didn't want to leave her behind. She'd alert my parents I wasn't there. Um, so
Dolly,
yeah,
you've made contact with other humans that you've seen on ships, correct?
yes.
When you see another person or in person, how do you approach them and how do you say, "Hey, I know you from being on board a UFO."
There's a few people that I've run into from time to time that I know who they are, and
Hmm.
they've gotten to know me as well. The regular contactees, and they're on a regular schedule of being watched and taken care of. So them
Hmm.
I know. Other people, you got to understand when you're open psychic, I see things about you that you don't realize that I'm looking at. I see your energy. I see your consciousness. You're talking to me. We're having a conversation already. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I've met you in either another lifetime or I somehow soul recognition, my consciousness recognizes
Okay.
you from source, that kind of thing. I see all energy. I've had experiences on this planet where, after you die, some people don't leave here. They don't go to the upper realms. And
Oh,
they'll be walking around and I run into them. I see them. I physically see them. I've had them follow me around and stuff like that. It's just, yeah. And I'm as gracious as I can be and enjoy the relationship with them while I'm present with them. Always be present, always, okay? Because they might need help, and it's up to you. If you see them, recognize what's going on with them, it's up to you
yeah.
to help them. One of the things I admire about Preston immensely is he loves helping people find the upper realms. If they're walking around wandering, he'll take them by the hand and say, "Come on, I know where really cool places," and he'll take them. ET does that.
What do you say? Take them by the hand. What do you mean? Literally?
When you're in the spirit, when your astral body is light, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you're made of light. You are you, but you're in a
Sure.
dense environment. You're in a third dimensional space where you're so gravity heavy that you feel like you're a solid. You're not. You're light. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
and but it's a physical attribute. Even when you're outside of this body, you still feel corporeal. You still feel like you have a body. Okay. Now
Mm-hmm.
you can see yourself as you really are. You can, if you're mentally able to go up to that level of seeing existence as it really is, you can see
Mm-hmm.
that you're actual light. Okay. But for the most part, we'll manifest out on the other side as corporeal. We'll look corporeal. We'll feel corporeal. We can do corporeal things. You know.
So you can reach other abductees this way as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
The craft Talata, we have a group of human beings that we watch. It's intensive, it's extensive. And I've gotten to know a lot of them over the years. And yes, I have relationships with them. When I see them on board, I recognize them, they recognize me. And that helps the situation greatly. The idea being is that they need to feel comfortable with us. This is the only way disclosure is really happening, to be honest with you. The government's not telling you anything. And so
Mm-hmm.
they've got a grassroots thing going on where you're going to get to know us. We're going to exclude their interference and we're going to just be with you. That's why they want you to wake up. And the sooner you start using your psychic abilities, you'd be able to call them to come. Okay.
Yeah.
Mentally come. They can OBE you, they can remote view you, they can psychically contact you as well. Physically, they're not with us right now. They have bugged out. They had to. Our
Mm-hmm.
situation is dire with our magnetosphere, and they cannot fly around here anymore right now at all. But you can contact them. You can see them. You can dream them even, and they'll pull you OBE at night and say, "Hey, how you doing?"
And if they do that, what is the point? Is it just to remind you that, hey, we're here?
The point is that that's how we all communicate. You don't realize that. That's another reason to become psychically aware, because this is normal communication for everybody. We should all be in contact with one another. I know Talat, I can call him anytime. I can
Yeah.
link with him psychically at any time. This
Well,
is
I mean,
a close relationship.
Katie Page. Yeah, I mean, Katie Page, who was on last week, and others. I've said the same thing. So that is that essentially what the CE5
Yes.
is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Beginning introduction. Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
So it would start with calling down,
Right.
for lack of
Exactly.
a better phrase, but calling down a UFO, and then build from there.
Well, you can start at home too by meditating. You can call them yourself. You can sit in your backyard, go into meditation, raise your consciousness up, and say, "I'm here. How about a chat? Let's talk."
Right. Well,
Seriously.
it's gotta be emotional for people who you knock on their door and say, "Hey, you've been an abductee. I've seen you before." Um, i- or is it a release when they find out?
A lot of people will wake up on their own. They'll trigger themselves. It's
Mm-hmm.
totally strictly up to you whether you remember contact or not. If your religion bars you from it, or you're emotionally too strung out over it, you can stop the memory cold and just you're aware of it, but you're not going to be thinking about it too much. But fear is generally the reason why that happens. The minute you get past being afraid of a being who's like you,
Mhm.
you'll wake up and you'll start feeling and emotionally walking into that, understanding it and experiencing it yourself.
Are there regions or places one can go to help them kind of connect, like an
Nope.
antenna, like a mountains or the ocean, or
No, you
maybe
are your own antenna. You
okay.
realize you have brainwaves, right?
Oh, sure, yeah,
Alpha, beta, theta, gamma, delta, correct?
I
Okay,
hope
you're a
so.
transmitter. You're a
Yeah.
transmitter. Your pineal gland is actually a
Hmm.
transmitter, a psychic transmitter. You
Yeah,
can
yeah.
hear from one end of this universe to the other. Einstein was totally correct. If a proton hears you, the other one on the other end of the universe hears it too. There's no
Crazy, right?
distance or time between us.
Hmm.
Okay, none whatsoever. And you don't need to go somewhere on this planet to facilitate yourself. There isn't more contact anywhere on this earth than anywhere else. It is you. You're the contactee. You transmit it out. You can do it.
Dolly, this picture that you provided, what are we looking at here?
That's a small craft. I was outside one night, and they had promised me that they were going to start showing themselves to me so that I could get them on film.
Hmm.
Digital can't anything electric, batteried, whatever, can't handle being too close to a craft. They electromagnetically pulse, and that pulse itself can knock out your electronics. So they were giving me opportunities to grab them on film, and this is one of them. This is a small craft. It's not that big. It's about 50-foot diameter, and he came in close enough for me to get a picture of him.
And
This is a drone. This is an ET drone. And
oh, interesting.
yeah,
And
this little guy,
yeah, good.
this little guy came down one night. There's a film that goes with this. It's on my YouTube page, by the way.
Hmm.
When you're anti-grav, you don't need propellers to be in the air, and there are no propellers on that thing. And they can
Hmm.
actually do a controlled flip, and totally 360 all the way around. And that night he came down, my neighbors were out with me looking at him, and he decided to show off. And I got him on film flipping.
Wow. That begs the question of how many different kind of craft have you come across?
Oof. I don't think there's a quote unquote number that I could give you any solid information about. There's a lot, because there are many different ethnicities of ET, and they all have their preferences of what type of craft they're flying, and they develop them themselves. The Greys love, the Turkish UFO.
Yeah, yeah,
You've seen it.
yeah. Where you can see the little figures in the window. Hmm.
Oh, oh,
What?
that's Talata.
Oh, that's a lot.
Seriously.
Really?
Yeah,
That just gave me
yeah,
goosebumps. Wow.
yeah. I have film of him in at the UFO MegaCon. He couldn't come all the way down because it's right near. It's Arizona. Okay, there's
Yeah, yeah.
bases everywhere. So he was on radar. He actually got seen. He was on the news in LA, and not LA, Las Vegas that night.
Mhm.
So he came down. He came down enough for me to see him, and he was blowing one side of the lights very bright, and then just did cuttlefish for the rest of it. But you can see the rest of the crap.
Mhm.
That's him. That's Talata.
So here's the thing. I mean, these beings, if they wanted to be seen, they could. And it seems to me
Absolutely.
on occasion they kind of flicker just for a second, just to give you a
Yes.
peek.
Yep.
And so why is that the tactic?
It just depends on where they're at and what's going on. You realize that there's lots of people down here who don't want them in their airspace, and
Mhm.
they pick and choose their moments. They're also dealing in the last 20 years with a really messed up magnetosphere, so
Yeah.
they can't come down completely and get close enough for you to really look at them. The ones that are flickering are above the atmosphere. They're in deep space. They're at satellite limit. Okay, they're a little bit
Mhm.
closer than a satellite, but they're right there. And they'll flicker because they want you to see them. You're looking at them. They know you're there. They can hear you in your head, and they'll just give you confirmation. Yeah, it's us. Blink, blink. Cool, huh? So yeah.
So the big reveal, would that deter our evolution? And I'm can't see it because of the microphone. I'm wearing my Star Trek pin that I had just recently discovered opening up old boxes from childhood. So I had to pop it on tonight. In Star Trek, there's the Prime Directive. So what
Yes.
is their what is their prime directive? If
They're
it
not.
is to help, if
Yeah.
it's to help us, why choose the way that they're doing it?
They're autonomous, highly evolved, more evolved than you could possibly imagine. Everything they do
Mhm.
seems like magic to most people, and it's not. It's actually technological. It's psychic.
Yeah.
The prime directive is this: they are not other entities from us. They are us. We are related to them. They are our progenitors. We are their children,
Hmm.
and they're watching over us. The directive is that we're allowed to karmically do whatever the heck we want.
Yeah.
And we were put here to evolve, and we were put here to learn. And it's disconcerting to them that we've chosen some of the paths that we've taken as a people, as a planet. Yes. But there is no quote unquote lawed prime directive. They have no system like that. They're not federated in any way. There's no galactic
Mm.
federation. They're
Gotcha.
highly, highly moral, interdependent, cooperative with one another, entities who we just happen to be related to.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, that they're so evolved that they don't need a document or a treaty.
No,
They just
no,
cooperate like
correct.
well-behaved,
Right.
kind-hearted beings, it sounds like. Now, what about the experiencers, Dolly, that are, that there are still some that say, this is a nightmare for me.
They need, well, do you help them when they say it? See, this is the part about
Well, I
helping your
think
fellow human
I
being,
think s I
you
think
know?
so, actually. I honestly, I think by having guests like you on these platforms, and sometimes we've actually had, different experiencers, one that have been through it for a while, and some for them it's
Yeah,
new, and that actually helps, I
right.
think.
The
Yeah,
habit of suffering, the habit of being afraid all the time, the habit of
Mhm.
being in existential fear can't
Yeah.
be tolerated. It has to be worked on. It has to be bring you out of it. If you're a victim all the time, that's all you'll ever be. And
Mhm.
it's good to teach somebody. I'll give you a very small window into this. You're a human being.
Sure.
You've been to the doctor how many times? Have you had any procedures that you weren't real enamored of? Hurt? Scared you? Bad? Okay. That's what they're experiencing with them.
Yeah.
And if you psychologically get with them and explain the truth to them and walk them through the reality of what's really going on, it brings them out of that. It teaches them something. They learn
Mhm.
from this experience. They shine a new light on it. They open a window, a door, whatever. Their psychic sight starts to see it for what it really is.
yeah. I can
So
speak to this a little bit too, because
sure,
when
yeah.
someone has an experience, it is often very scary. I would say that's even more the rule than the exception. Initially, when people have contact, they have a very strong fear reaction, largely
Mhm.
because our society is so steeped in fear. There is a cover-up, there is a false narrative being put forth. And when this happens to you, it can be frightening. And when someone has a strong fear reaction, when you are terrified, you do not perceive correctly or accurately. And
Mhm.
your ultimate, you very quickly, and fear is an awful emotion. Nobody likes it. And when you have intense fear, you say, well, this is bad. This is
Mhm.
evil. I don't like this. And you shut down. And this is how people often will immediately say, this is bad. I don't like this. I didn't give permission and so forth.
Yeah.
But the fact is, if you don't have a strong fear reaction, you get a completely different experience. And I always ask contactees, okay, let's just take a deep breath and tell me exactly what actually happened to you. Because the ETs, the first word they will tell you is, do not be afraid. Have
Mhm.
no fear. No harm will come to you. We will not hurt you. That is not their agenda. It's not even close to it's the opposite. So, and there's also another thing that bears mentioning here, which is MyLabs. And there are some people who are victims of this, who are being given negative experiences that aren't ET, but they are
Mhm.
interpreting it that way. And this is muddying the waters. And it's not a whole lot, but it's enough to provide some real disinformation. And of course, that is promulgated throughout the media. So we have to be very careful, very objective, really look at your experiences and what is actually happening to you. Because
Mhm.
if you look, you will see, yes, you're being physically examined. But have you been healed? I've got 300 plus cases. I wrote a book about it. Do they take you on a tour of the craft? Happens more often than you think. They will take you to the observation deck, show you the star field, show you another planet. Dolly talked about seeing Saturn. I have several cases of that. Seeing the moon. Many cases of people, as I mentioned earlier, being put in the seat and told how to fly the craft.
Yeah.
Look at what actually happens. It's actually really very encouraging.
And I think of Travis Walton's case too. He said the same thing, that his initial reaction when he woke up on that bed was fear. And he reached out to grab something. The first thing he could find, just grabbed it and started swinging it at them, but later realized that was just his fight or flight, kicking in, which makes sense, because when you're in fight or flight mode, it's about self-preservation, and that's all you can think about. Dolly, why doesn't the government know what you know? Why go through this bother of trying to slow this down or never reveal true disclosure?
It all goes back to their agenda. Literally, they don't want to tell the truth of what I know because they think that they're going to survive the CME and then a micronova after it. And they've prepared for the last 80 years. They've been working to do this. And they know that the entire planet population is too big to handle that many people in that situation. And so they've decided that they're elite and they're going to be the ones to survive it, not us. No, they're not going to tell you the truth. They don't want to hear what I have to say.
I see. Okay. So they really have no idea what the ETs are telling you. And if they did,
yeah, they do. I'm monitored. I'm followed. I got CIA and Black Ops on my backside. They know.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question.
Yeah.
Is surely they're aware of some contactees.
Of course they're aware.
Do they just want to ignore it?
No, they're ignoring it on purpose because of their agenda. ET doesn't want to talk to them. They tried. Historically, they tried. They tried with Eisenhower, and they realized that it was just not going to happen. And they totally reorganized their thinking about all of us and decided, that's it. We'll just go to the people themselves. We're not playing with these monarchs because they're not right thinking in their head at all.
Is there a future within our lifetime that we as a humanity will universally accept that ETs are here?
Yeah, it's either do or die, take your pick. They're coming, and what's going to happen to this planet and everybody on it is coming. You won't have a choice anymore. You have no choice right now. Look at what's happening to you physically by your own world governments right now. They're starving you. There are diseases. I could go on and on and on and on. Things are happening where large amounts of people are being offed. Genocide is occurring everywhere, and it has been for a while. They have a major war they're starting. They have nukes. They're crazy with those things. You are not okay. It is happening now. There's no existential. Don't be delusional, please. This is real.
One
this
thing
is
after
happening.
the next. And one thing after the next is the next.
Right.
And that does create, I think, fatigue in people, and that fatigue would distract away from.
That's why you meditate. You'll re-energize yourself in meditation. You'll glean energy that is important to you. Everybody. Okay. Please do that.
No, I totally agree. I need to meditate more as well. And I encourage everybody out there to take that time, like even start with just 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Take baby steps. Yeah. Yep. Fortunately for us, we're no longer in New York City. So, in the smallest way, we can step outside and get some fresh air and get some quiet. And wow, how healthy is that for the mind?
Exactly.
Yeah. Compared to the stoop on the street with the fires, sirens and all that going on, which, it has its own kind of a romance because, I love New York City, or, did for the longest time. But, and that's the thing is, when we look to our future, and you're saying that we need to contact we need to contact our higher self. Will we evolve as a species, like physically evolve?
Everybody, yeah. You personally start evolving like crazy. Things are going to start happening for you, okay? And everybody who wakes up is going through the same thing. You'll make contact with one another. You'll start meeting them on the streets. I'm not kidding you. You will wake up to a group of people who are around you. You'll be among those who are as aware as you. You'll seek each other out. Okay, yep.
Okay, so we will physically evolve. Does that mean our brains are going to change? And
No, you're
what
not going to
happens?
physically evolve. You're going to consciously evolve.
Consciously.
Your
Okay,
consciousness
got it.
is who you are, not this physical body. Okay.
Hmm.
And once your consciousness wakes up and it's able to communicate to this physical body where you are, your GPS will go, oh, okay. And your physical body follows your consciousness. It's not the other way around. Your consciousness does not follow your physical body. Your physical body is not in charge. Your consciousness is. Always remember that. Okay.
Right,
That's
and that's what I was
important.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If the brain evolves, the consciousness evolves, then
Right.
wouldn't the brain change in some way
It
to
will
follow
mostly,
suit?
yes. It will follow
Okay,
suit. It will follow your consciousness. Yes.
gotcha. All
Right.
right, Dolly, if you can leave us with one thought before we go tonight.
Just remember that while all of this is going on, you still have a karmic life in front of you.
Hmm.
And the most important thing that you can do is remember all this, start practicing what you need to do and learn what you need to do, but still live your life. Still find joy in your life. Still love yourself and everybody else. Still remember that to be present in the moment and
Hmm.
to experience it for what it really is in truth is the best thing you can do. It'll elevate your happiness level. It'll take you away from all the gunk. It'll make you more stable so that when things start happening, you'll be able to take care of yourself in it. Okay. Most important. And love answers all things. Love, always love.
Okay, and to
Okay.
find out more about Dolly, I'll put the link in the comment section down below. And Preston, if you could leave us with one thought tonight as well.
Yeah, well, I'll just echo Dolly. Betty Andreasen, a very famous contactee, was told by her gray contacts, love is the answer for humankind. And it is. I think we just need to base our actions on love, compassion, and truth. Have fun. We're here to have fun. So, I think that is the true answer. Love one another.
Yeah. All right. So check out the book Symmetry, A True UFO Adventure by Preston Dennett, the story of Dolly Safran. Thank you both so much for
You're
coming on
welcome.
tonight. I really appreciate it. It was a fantastic conversation.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
My honor. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
allowing
you
me to
both.
bring it forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. If you appreciated our stream and all of the Paranormal Now episodes, please like, comment down below, subscribe, and click the notification bell for future content. As always, I appreciate you and I appreciate your questions every week. It makes this show all the better. So until next time, everyone, peace and love, and live in the mystery.